All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in today. Welcome to another Showcase AMA here on the Polygon Discord. Today, we are speaking with Ben Jennings from xToken. How are you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me. Great to be here, everybody. I am the growth lead at xToken. So we'll tell you a little bit about xToken today, but I'm responsible for sort of the growth of our platform, marketing, business development, partnerships, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really great to have you here, Ben. I'm wondering, do you want to go a little bit more in depth on your background? Like, what's your backstory? What got you into crypto before we jump into xToken?
Yeah, that'd be great. So I've been following crypto and buying a bit since about 2018 when a coworker of mine convinced me to buy some Ripple, some Ethereum. So I think I unfortunately got Ripple at like all-time highs, but he got me exposed to Ethereum, and I just started kind of watching the asset. But it really wasn't until 2020 and sort of the bull run when I started watching numbers go up that I started getting really, really deep into, DeFi and eventually NFTs and just like many of you, absolutely falling in love with it, spending all my free time there, spinning up some projects of my own, contributing to DAOs, and then eventually going full time with xToken in January of this year. Prior to that, I had about a 10-year career in strategy consulting. So I was doing kind of like custom technology and marketing strategy engagements with these big, like Fortune 500 companies. So awesome experience. Taught me a lot of different things. Taught me like a lot of different industries and roles, but totally different uh, to the Web3 culture. I don't think in any of those jobs would I have been able to get on stage with a crypto dick butt. So pretty cool to be here and loving the space as much as ever in my first bear market that I'm really paying attention in, at least.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to you. Once I got into the space, I just completely fell in love with everything. And, it's so strange being able to have your profile picture as like a ghost or a crypto dick butt. And, you see so many people here in this chat. We all have our like pseudo anonymous names. It's like really a unique culture. I love it. So yeah, that's awesome. So how did you get involved with xToken? When was xToken founded? What inspired it? And what problems are you guys solving?
Yeah, for sure. So I got involved through the recommendation of a friend. It was a job posting on Twitter. He recommended me for it. I was doing a lot of marketing strategy work as a consultant. So just kind of met with Michael, our founder, a couple of times, did, kind of like a test project for them and got in. So yeah, I'll transition from myself to a little bit more about xToken. So some of you may be familiar with us. xToken has actually been in the space for about coming up on 2.5 years now. So kind of an OG from that first, DeFi summer. Um, Originally, we did the sort of custom liquidity, staking, and governance strategies. So, like kind of wrapping other protocols and tokens to get our stakers the most yield. So, kind of hence the X in the name, a commonly used way to say different wrap tokens. So that was where we began. Um, Fast forward to kind of where we are today, or at least starting in January when I joined, we noticed that we were kind of in the asset management business. It was pretty ad hoc, right? Because when a protocol changed something, we would need to kind of change our entire strategy. So we noticed that we were doing a lot of the same, like creating custom rewards contracts and a lot of sort of repeatable infrastructure. And we decided that the best way we could serve the market is to actually, create this stuff in a way that's permissionless, in a way that requires no code to deploy, kind of package it up in a really easy to use user experience and deploy it for anybody and everybody to use. So that was the idea behind xToken Terminal and kind of what we launched right about when I was brought in. So we launched in March of this year. Um, Broadly, what we want to do is give projects and individuals the tools that they need to deploy these what we call complex DeFi primitives. So things that pretty much every project needs to go through in its life cycle, like bootstrapping liquidity through perhaps a token offering or an NFT mint or some other way to raise capital. Um, you know, getting that capital on chain so that it can be traded on decentralized exchanges. So that's commonly in the form of liquidity mining and other sort of financial primitive use cases like bonding. And we have some novel ideas as well. So we have a pretty broad mandate of what we want to tackle. And we have two apps live today. Well, technically one live, one launching next week. We have mining, and that's an app for any project that wants to launch on Uniswap v3, an incentivized liquidity mining campaign. That requires a lot of technical work and overhead. You need to build a configurable contract pretty much from scratch. You need to build a front end. You're probably want to get that code audited, which can cost a lot of development hours, time, and money as well. So mining allows you to just in a couple of clicks without any code, you can configure exactly what pair you want to incentivize, how the rewards will be paid out. If you want to do multi-token incentives, if you want the tokens to vest, what platform you want to deploy on, you can figure all that stuff. Click a few buttons and deploy. Makes it super seamless. The next app that's launching next week, and then I'm sure we'll go into a lot more detail on each of these. So I'll stop after this sentence. But we're launching a platform called Origination that's coming up next week, and this is really going to be sort of a flexible financing platform. So this is that sort of there's a couple of different use cases that are interesting, but these are essentially for firms or projects, individuals who have an idea and they want to sort of sell that and begin to raise capital. So there are a few different use cases that we serve. Token offerings are probably the most will be the most commonly utilized. So essentially exchanging one asset for another. So if you want to sell your native project token for some ETH using all kinds of custom dynamic pricing, reserve conditions, you can use our platform to do it. Because you're exchanging one asset for another, there's also some interesting kind of like novel or Olympus Pro style bonding mechanics that you can use. And you can also create your own sort of OTC markets because you're essentially any asset from one to another. If you're exchanging, as long as they're ERC20s, you can set up those parameters on our origination platform. So I know that's kind of a lot. Let me know where you want to dig in a little bit more.
Yeah, that definitely was a lot. There's a lot of cans of conversation to crack into. Um, I guess the first one I think that's really important is you mentioned the incentivized liquidity programs or mining.
Yep.
I was wondering if you could break down a bit more, like what the main benefit for projects is to like with this product.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really about sort of two, three key benefits. The first is savings in time and effort. So we see dev hours as like the most scarce resource in DeFi essentially. And a lot of project teams who are not super well versed in like financial contracts are having their developers focus on those instead of on focusing on the core product. So this is, in our opinion, a perfect kind of thing to outsource with a generalized best practice, rigorously tested contract so that they can work on building what they do best. The second would be sort of offloading risk. So really along those same lines, we've seen other projects get absolutely wrecked with a bug or just a poorly written contract. The one that always comes to mind for me is the Akutar's Mint, where a simple, line of code in their withdraw function of their contract meant that all the NFTs that they sold for the entire mint was locked forever in their contract and they weren't able to withdraw it. So it's just a simple oversight, maybe like a code review would have, or an audit would have caught that, maybe not, but there's just a lot of risk in kind of doing it yourself. And then the third main benefit is really that user experience. And that's what we're investing so much in, is just making it both for the project who's deploying a mining campaign or a token offering, and also the sort of end user consumer who's participating in a liquidity mining program or purchasing tokens. We just want to make it super seamless, super easy to use, a couple clicks, and an optimized workflow.
Yeah, it's a really good product. Like I think you look at dexes and they often rent liquidity, like they're supplying yield to liquidity providers to get liquidity on their exchange, and to be able to just incentivize people to provide liquidity on Uniswap v3 without even having to do any coding. I think that's huge. Like there's an immense benefit to that. So
Appreciate that. Yeah. And in V3, I mean, it comes with a lot of power with its concentrated liquidity and other sort of, step function improvements, but it's not like V2 where people could kind of simply like copy the contract and put in a few variables and deploy. V3 really requires a lot of technical and functional expertise. So that was sort of, as I mentioned, this kind of came about organically. We're working with other sort of rapid protocols and projects who, wanted us to kind of build infrastructure that made this a lot easier.
yeah, and with V3, it's the concentrated liquidity model, right? So I'm wondering, would you be able to make like different incentives for different like ranges?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So the way that it works is when you're configuring the variables, you're putting the the pair, you're putting the fee tier, everything that you would need to input into Uniswap v3. In fact, you can even deploy straight onto Uniswap from our platform if that pool pair doesn't exist yet. Then in our three-step workflow, second step is configuring the concentrated liquidity. So you can set your own range that you'd like to use. You also have the option to go full range, which for a lot of projects, especially in volatile market conditions, that does make sense. But concentrated liquidity, if used effectively, can be super powerful. So that option is there. We also, you may be familiar with sort of like um, actively managed liquidity, where there are some projects or some other protocols who are kind of like actively rebalancing the liquidity ranges. So that's not exactly our ethos. Ours is more like core permissions infrastructure for anybody to use. Keep it super simple. But we are launching soon a rebalance CLI, which will effectively allow projects, as long as there's a secondary liquidity source they can tap into, they'll be able to rebalance that range. So they don't have to worry as much if it falls out of concentrated liquidity range with that application. And that should be out probably in January.
Fantastic. Wow, there's so many things to talk about because you have such a wide scope of like product offerings. If anybody has any questions for Ben, make sure to drop them in the chat, and I will ensure they get asked. Something I'm curious about is you mentioned something that's similar to the Olympus Pro bond. I'm wondering if
Mm-hmm.
you could elaborate a bit more on that.
Yeah, exactly. So as you mentioned, mining is sort of like has been compared to renting liquidity. We actually have a really interesting piece coming from our founder that'll be published in the next couple of weeks about sort of some of the, I think liquidity mining sort of gets a bad reputation compared to things like bonding or protocol owned liquidity. But he lays forth the idea that actually liquidity mining is sort of an optimal way to use your funds as a project. So it's a lot more nuanced than that, and I wouldn't be doing it justice to kind of talking through his points. But be on the lookout for that because it's a really interesting, somewhat contrarian point of view in this market. But anyway, what bonding is essentially kind of like buying back, so protocol owned liquidity. It's a bit more expensive than renting liquidity, like in a liquidity mining program, but there are certainly, solid use cases for it and reasons to do so.
Yeah, most definitely. So I want to talk about some of your other product offerings. You pretty soon people are going to be able to
You should
register custom token sales, correct?
exactly. Sorry, I just got a phone call if I cut out. I tried to stop it. But
Oh,
with
no worries, you're good.
origination, you can exchange one asset for another. So one of the ways that you can sort of make a bonding use case, and that's actually going to be our first launch partner, is with Galleon DAO doing a bonding program. You can sell your native token, and in exchange, you'll be accepting, an LP position at a fixed or ascending or descending amount. So you can actually do this to kind of buy back LP in exchange for tokens. So it's effectively it's sort of the same as the Olympus Pro style bonding. We give it as sort of like a flexible financing offering, but it's functionally the same thing.
Yeah, so how I think I follow now. This makes a lot of sense and it's really cool. Like how customizable is this kind of like origination sale?
Yeah, pretty customizable. I mean, we can actually, once we get to the presentation portion, the way that these apps are designed, it's like you can demo the platform in just a couple of minutes. So really, it's just a three-step process, and the amount of options you can do, you can change, you can set a reserve price, kind of like eBay. If you're doing a token offering and it doesn't meet a certain price, then you can kick back all the funds to the donors and kind of cancel the sale. You can set different pricing options. So you can do an ascending price model, a descending price model, or fixed. You can do allow list and or public sale options. So all you need to do is upload a CSV with all the addresses and the allocations, and we handle all the Merkleization. So you can manage an allow list directly through the platform. And you can also do vesting parameters. So if you want to set a vesting period, a cliff period, or both, you can easily configure that through the platform. And then when tokens are able to be claimed, users do it through our portal as well. So it's super seamless on both sides.
It's an interesting question from Aditya. He's asking, is it fair to call xToken the SaaS version of a mining rig?
Probably, well, mining rig to me kind of talks to like proof of work mining. So probably, unless I'm drawing the wrong parallel, probably not akin to that. But it's definitely, I've called it like LMAA, liquidity mining as a service. So it definitely is just sort of a service for projects to raise capital, to launch mining programs, things like that. I think AAS is definitely a moniker that you could apply to us.
um, so do you guys support like just a do you have like whitelisted tokens that you support, or do you allow people to use any custom token on your platform?
Yep. So we want to be entirely permissionless, trustless, and agnostic. So the way that we're set up, anybody can use us for any use case and any token. And in fact, a lot of the mining programs that are live today have been, projects that we're working with and pursuing because it's kind of like, B2B partnerships. But we have had some just sort of random pools pop up with people that we don't even know. So they must have found us through Twitter or through some sort of marketing program and ended up deploying. And we think that's great. We really want to be that permissionless utility that anybody can use.
Awesome. Yeah, I really like your you guys have a solid mission statement. Um well, I think something that's really important to talk about is how do you guys generate revenue?
Hmm. It's a great question. Um, so currently we have two different fees that will be throughout every app that we launch will be sort of consistent. So with each xToken terminal app, there will be a deployment fee to deploy these custom contracts, and that'll be in ETH. So to use mining as an example, it costs zero point 0.2 ETH to deploy a custom incentivized liquidity mining contract. The second fee is a percentage fee of tokens distributed through the contract. So for mining, 1% of the tokens that are distributed through the platform go to xToken. And origination is going to have slightly different fees. So I don't know if we've published the final figures, but those two variables, so sort of a flat deployment fee in ETH, and then a percentage of tokens that are either sold through the platform or distributed as mining incentives. Mining does have one final fee. It's a little bit more niche, but essentially, this is these mining programs are deployed as a shared contract, so there are also performance fees from the actual swaps. So there's sort of a one-click button for the pool sponsor to redeploy those fees, so it kind of gets evenly distributed to all of the stakers. And we also take a percentage fee of that performance. So it doesn't affect the LPs. It's just the performance on the pool for the pool sponsor. We take a small percentage of those swap fees, that performance. So those are our fees, and our fees are used to essentially buy back XTK to be paid to XTKA stakers. So sorry, this is going to be a little complex, but XTKA is our liquid composable token. And when you stake that, it's kind of constantly accruing XTK through inflationary incentives and through fees from xToken terminal. So 100% of our fees at this current time are used to invest back into our token and our stakers.
Oh wow, so that's a great revenue sharing opportunity. We always like talking
Mm-hmm.
about real yield, that's sustainable. Yeah, I'd love it
Absolutely.
if you could elaborate more on just the whole tokenomics and all the utility of the tokens.
Sure, I'll do my best. It's definitely not my forte on the team, but essentially there are liquid staking pools, XTK, XXTK pairs that you can stake on in our platform, and that'll earn you XTK. So as a liquidity mining program, you'll earn some incentives, and then also your XTKA is kind of constantly accruing XTK. So the way that this works is, you could stake 100 XTK and receive 500 XXTKA. You stake that over a period of months, and that is constantly accruing XTK. At the time you want to unstake, and now the when you unstake, the sort of issuance to redemption rate is now 1 XTK per 4 XXTKA. So this number is actually going down. So your XTK that you initially deposited is more valuable. So you started with 100. The amount of XXTKA that you exchange for is constant, but it's worth more in XTK. So that's sort of how that mechanism works functionally for people who invest in XXTKA. I'll stop before I put people totally to sleep, but let me know if you want any more sort of details or information on how those mechanisms work.
Okay. No, I think that was a pretty good explanation. If anyone has any questions, just drop them in the chat and we can get a little more technical just for you. Aditya is wondering how would you define liquidity mining in one sentence?
Um, Essentially, it's incentivizing holders to provide liquidity on chain through incentives. Liquidity is essential for any project. You need to have deep on-chain liquidity so that you can swap on decentralized exchanges. So liquidity mining is essentially giving people a financial reason to do so for your token.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. A lot of basically everything I find in Web3 is incentive driven. Just to add to that, and then Frankie is wondering, can you turn the reward tokens to USDC? I guess like just to elaborate on
Sure.
Frankie's question, is there like any like lockup period or anything?
So you can set vesting parameters if you'd like. Any project, that's one of the default configuration options. You can add vesting periods, but assuming no vesting period, then yes, as you earn them, you can claim them, you can swap them to whatever you'd like.
Um, Ben, if you did want to do a screen share or showcase anything, you're more than welcome to. Just saying. Another question I had is related to governance. Do you have any like form of a DAO or governance model?
It's on our roadmap for 2023. So XTK is technically our governance token, and we do use it to vote on chain for a few select initiatives, such as you know, should we continue, and what exactly are the parameters of some of our staking programs that directly affect XTK holders. In 2023, we do want to make the governance a lot more decentralized. Eventually putting sort of project improvement ideas and key decisions into the hands of your holders. But that's a major initiative for next year. This year was really all about launching some of these apps and rolling out product functionality.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. While we're on the subject of roadmap, is there any alpha you can share with us that um, yeah.
Sure, I think this is a perfect time for me to pull up my screen on the other account.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds good. Like I don't want to get you in trouble. Don't say anything that would get you in
No,
trouble
no
from the
problem.
alpha police, but
We'll just look at so this is on testnet, but it's very close to launch. We can definitely share this. So this is going to be the new UI now that we have multiple apps. Before, xToken terminal.io would just take you to the mining app there's a landing page and then the mining app, but now we have a few other apps in play. So we've got mining and origination. And I think I'll show you once I talk about some of the applications that make up the terminal platform. I'll show you a quick look at what's kind of under the hood. We do have a few other apps in play in our roadmap. Probably the next one that we'll launch is very similar to origination, but for non-fungible tokens. So bringing that same level of customization and permissionless we want to allow for no-code NFT contract deployments. So being able to, upload, manage your whitelisting, manage all the financial components. So taking in funds, helping to kind of architect the NFT mint. And then looking a little further into the future. So these are still kind of like proof of concepts, but we want to build out more kind of like treasury related applications, like some sort of native collateralization and potentially a liquidity optioning app. Before we get to these that are not currently live, we want to make sure that we're expanding on what we already have built in terms of rolling out new features like that rebalance CLI that I mentioned. And I would love to just quickly show you. So I know I kind of talked through it, but it won't take too long to just show you what some of these apps look like. So we can look at origination under the hood. Um, Typically, this would be filled, this Discover tab would be all the existing project opportunities. So different token offerings, different kind of bonding programs, all that good stuff that an end user can participate in if they wish. What we'll go through is the flow of creating and deploying your own financing. It says token offering here. I think we're softening that language just a bit, but that's the use case that I'll show you guys. So I'm just going to grab a test token here. As I mentioned, it can be any token. So we'll sell AMP. That's actually one of our launch partners that's coming up. We don't have a set date, but Amplify will be issuing a token offering through our platform. You can set what you'd like to earn in exchange. So a lot of times it's USDC or ETH. You can set the amount that you'd like to sell, a reserve price, like I mentioned. So let's say we want to raise at least $10,000 or else we'll cancel the sale. Step 2 is setting the auction parameters. So you can do both an allow list and a public sale if you wish. Just for the purposes of this, we'll do a public sale. We'll do an ascending. So, people who get in early get it for cheap, and it eventually increases in price over time. We can set the sale offering amount, so 4 weeks. If we wish, we can add vesting periods to our token offering. So let's say a 4-week vesting period without a cliff. And that's pretty much it. We just took a token offering and completely set all the parameters in this custom contract. Next thing we do is deploy, and there's only one final step. And that's once we've deployed this custom contract, we would take those AMP tokens from our wallet and deploy them into the contract, and at which point the sale is live. So I know there's still a lot of technical detail there, but I just wanted to kind of show you, like, under the hood what this actually looks like for projects who want to deploy with us. And we've kind of got to boil down to a couple step process.
Yeah, I think that is incredible. I know there are a few other platforms that allow people to do this type of token listing. What would you say are the main differences? Like, what helps you to stand out from your competitors?
Yeah, so one of the things as we're building out this ecosystem and launching multiple apps is kind of like the depth of our offerings. So there are other financing platforms, there are other LMAAS platforms, but there aren't really any who are doing kind of this like end to end, all the needs of a project from a financial perspective. So we think of it in the Web2 world, it's kind of like an investment bank, the services that they provide. So we're trying to build, really kind of like broad financial infrastructure. In terms of like going head to head on any of these specific apps, we're really investing a lot in our permissionlessness and in our UX. So a lot of our competitors, like on the liquidity mining as a service front, are partially permissioned, where the configuration needs to be done by the project or the deployment needs to be done by the project. We set all of our apps up to be completely done permissionlessly with no technical expertise. So that's a huge differentiator for us. The other one is a lot of the popular competing apps are just look like, they don't have any kind of UI or UX. Like, they're just kind of thrown on there and they're functional enough, but I think we've all seen some DeFi apps that leave a little to be desired when compared to the Web2 world. So we really wanted to design something that was intuitive, easy to use, and a positive user experience. And we're really listening to our customers and trying to determine, what are those kind of things that we can be improving upon to make that even better. We also, I do think that we compete, for being, in my opinion, like a quality product against some of these offerings. We're also very inexpensive. So I mentioned just like a 1% fee for awards distributed. I've seen from competitors, for upwards of around 3%, and for active management, even like 5%. So I think we're really competitively priced as well, which kind of helps get us towards that narrative of being sort of like, you know, infrastructure that anyone can use. So we wanted to leave it pretty reasonably priced as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think like with origination, there's a lot. It's way more customizable. Like a lot more parameters. Like it really innovates on the offerings that some competitors have. So I definitely think you have some huge advantages there. Oh, I got a really fun question for you. How do you envision the future of Web3, and how do you envision xToken's position within that future?
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in Web3, both in NFTs, in DeFi, in things that we probably haven't even thought up yet. I think DeFi is going, like these kind of no code platforms like xToken, I think are eventually going to be providing sort of a backbone so that if you do want to come into this space, it's a lot easier. There are easier on rails, there are better no code tools. Because right now, the user experience on both sides, whether you're a project trying to work Solidity contracts, or you're an end user consumer, like downloading a MetaMask and working through sexes and dexes, it's just a mess, right? It takes a lot of work. There's a learning curve for everyone. So I really see sort of like a general smoothing out of all of those on and off ramps, a much better customer experience. Like you can't even compare DeFi today to like using, you know, uh, any real Web 2 app. It just doesn't compare in terms of simplicity and UX. So I see a sort of a general improvement there. And I think xToken is providing sort of a core foundational piece on the liquidity side of DeFi. And I also do predict, that the space is just going to continue to grow. Like I think it's a compelling enough offering. I think that with all of these massive blowups of centralized players, like it really sucks for the space. It's not a good look, but it did kind of prove what we've been trying to prove since the inception of crypto, and that's decentralization is important. And everything in DeFi has been sort of working as intended. So with general DeFi growth, with a strive towards a better user experience, I think xToken really has an opportunity to be sort of that core trusted infrastructure layer for new projects who are entering the DeFi scene.
Epic. That's beautiful. Well, oh, I was gonna say that you've basically answered all of my questions, but I just realized one thing that we haven't talked about at all, really, is security. Have you gotten any audits done on the platform? Oh, it looks like secured by. It looks like you have.
Yeah, yeah. So security is vitally important to us, especially pre-terminal. Early stage xToken did suffer an exploit with one of our previous wrap strategies, which was really devastating to the protocol. It was before my time, but pretty familiar with the incident. It was essentially a flash loan incident, and the founding team responded to that with strength, and really sort of an emphasis on rigorous OPSEC practices, as well as investing a significant portion of the sort of product budget into security. So with xToken Terminal, what we did was we received audits from both ABDK and CertiK. So the ABDK one in particular, we're very, very proud of. You can find the full audit reports in our documentation. We also had a standing immune 5 bug bounty program, which, I think is a great way to kind of crowdsource white hat hacking, and allow individuals a chance to test stretch the parameters of our platform in exchange for money if they find any kind of exploits. So between those audits and that program, and just like we made some key hirings and established some key internal processes for security. That is something that we really focus on, because if we're going to be trusted at the infrastructure layer, people need to be fully aware of our contracts. They need to be rigorously tested and trusted.
Fantastic. I just dropped a type form in the text channel for a POAP, so just fill that out with your wallet address. I'll make sure everyone who's here gets sent a POAP who would like one. And yeah, Ben, this has been really awesome getting such a high level overview of everything. I'm curious, is there anything um, that we haven't touched on already that you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I was just kind of bringing it up. I think the only other thing I'll show you is a lot of what we've talked about has been sort of like theoretical, what's coming, sort of like in the weeds from a project perspective. I don't want to make people think that they can't get involved with the project as a end user, like a DeFi investor. So we do have some really interesting liquidity mining programs that are live today on our app. So here I switch from testnet to mainnet. You can see some of our active programs. So I just wanted to highlight two of them. One is, and actually, full disclosure, we don't have any Polygon projects yet. We're on mainnet, Optimism, Arbitrum, and Polygon, and we still have yet to have our first Polygon project. So if you guys know of anyone who is looking to launch a liquidity mining campaign or a token offering or something of that nature, definitely send them our way. But anyway, I wanted to highlight two kind of projects that are mining campaigns that are going on right now. So one is with the Optimism Foundation. So part of Optimism's token launch program is distributing incentives, and they used xToken as one of the platforms of choice to get their token liquidity out on Uniswap v3. So there's this WETH OP pool that's paying pretty nice APRs still, and this program goes until March 21, 2023. So it's a pretty interesting program. As an individual, I participated in myself. I think the APRs are pretty nice. And we also have we're also working with the Uniswap Foundation on a series of pools. So it's actually at 0% APR right now because the first phase is over, but they launched a couple pools. So there was an ETH DAI pool, there was a USDC DAI pool, and an ETH USDC pool, I believe. And the Uniswap Foundation also received an Optimism grant. So this is on Optimism. And they're distributing their tokens through our platform. So really cool. It's always nice to get good yield on a stable asset. I think this was around like 20%, and it should be back soon. But just wanted to kind of show you guys what exists today. We've been hovering between like 4 million and 6 million TVL. Some really cool yield opportunities. So definitely check it out. Check out our website, our Twitter, our Discord. We'd love to get you involved with the community. And if you know any projects that might want to use our services, we do have our referral incentives program. So you can actually earn some ETH by referring projects to us. So you guys can see my name in the Discord. I'll drop a note and say hi, but reach out to me if you know of anybody, or if you just want to get more involved or learn more about the
Awesome. One thing I totally forgot about to ask is like what chains are you on and why, but it looks like you're on all the chains that Uniswap v3 supports, correct? I'm curious, like, would there ever be plans to support additional chains or even additional exchanges? Like, I think there's QuickSwap now uses the concentrated liquidity model. Would you ever support QuickSwap liquidity pools?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. You're right. The four chains that we're on right now, it's kind of driven by where Uniswap V3 is, and now that they're on, um, I'm blanking on the name, formerly the XDAI chain. So it's not even technically true, and I believe they're going to Aurora as well. So we're a few behind. We are open to other chains and other dexes. I think we would probably do other dexes first. So we've talked about like sushi. So it doesn't have to be concentrated liquidity necessarily. Really, any dex that supports mining, we could make it super easy for people to deploy on. So we've talked about like sushi. We've talked about Bancor. Um, but yeah, I'd really be curious to hear where folks think we could make the most impact. If there are other dexes change that you'd like to see a tool like this on, I'd be super curious to hear because we definitely want to make our product make informed product decisions, based on actual data.
Yeah, for sure. Where did you say people could get the details about the referral program?
Um, I'll have to find. We've definitely posted it in our Discord. I'm happy to chat with folks as well, but let me just after this call grab you a quick write up, and I'll drop it in here in the chat.
Okay. I have someone saying there's an issue with my type form. Oh, apparently I have to have Typeform Pro. 1 second.
Another thing that we can do today, just because I really appreciate the level of questions we are getting. This has been a really awesomely interactive AMA. We do have some NFTs that we're kind of like, uh, we're just sort of a fun perk for people who invested in our OP pool. So this is unfortunately not on Polygon, it's on Optimism. But if you guys would like one, they're these sort of like, it's called rare OPEPs. So they're sort of like, some of them are Optimism themes, some are just more modern memes. But if you're familiar with the original rare Pepes, we sort of took that theme and just kind of like made some really new fun meme cards. So it's a totally free mint. It's whitelist only. But if you guys would like to drop your wallets, I don't know what the best way is, Zonzi, to collect those. Maybe within that channel, maybe open up a new thread. But if attendees want to drop their wallet, we can definitely whitelist them to for this free mint. Again, it'll be on Optimism, so you'll need a small amount of OETH for the transaction.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out the best way to go about collecting everyone's addresses because I just ran into a bit of a roadblock with the type form because apparently you have to pay, I don't know, a lot to get more than 10 responses a month. So
Well, you're collecting addresses, so we'll just borrow the same
yeah, well,
address list.
perfect. That sounds good. So if you didn't manage to get your wallet address submitted via the type form, just DM me and I will make sure you get the rare O Pepe whitelist as well as the PO-up. Um, perfect. That works well. Yeah, this is super cool. I'm a big fan of rare Pepes and like Pepe Nardo specifically. He does some really cool work. So yeah, I think this is a awesome collection.
Excellent. Appreciate that. Yeah, it should be fun. It's a small supply. It's one for each. Oh, that's actually outdated. It's 365. So yeah, no promise. It's just kind of like a fun art project, but low supply. Should be a good time.
I recognize a few of the meme templates there. That's great. I'll definitely have to get on that whitelist as well.
Yep,
Um,
please submit your wallet as well, Zanti.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, Ben, and I'm really grateful for everyone who has attended today. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks again, Ben. Um, I don't know. I feel like this has been really comprehensive. I'll drop all the social links again in the chat. So, well, there's the website if you want to go try out xToken Terminal today, and then there's the Twitter. Go give them a follow and join the Discord. And yeah, I don't know, Ben. Is there anything else you want to cover? Or I think that's pretty well.
I think that's it, guys. I'll take a look at the voice chat and drop any other links that I think you need to follow. But really appreciate everyone spending their time here today, asking questions, listening to me talk. Hopefully, you guys learned something today. Curious for any feedback too. If you noticed anything on the presentation or on the product itself that you want to share, always open to new ideas.
Yeah, if you guys have a question that comes to mind after the AMA, you know where to go. Just jump in their Discord. I'm sure someone will get to you. And perfect. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining in today, and thank you again, Ben. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and speak to the Polygon community.
My pleasure. And should I drop info in this voice chat channel? Is that the best place?
Yeah, so the text channel for this voice chat works as well as there's another text channel called voice chat. We had that before they
Okay.
added text channels for the voice channels. So yeah, I don't know. Discord's fun. We make it work.
Got it. Got it.
All right, and I'll make sure to forward you that
Sweet.
list of wallet addresses. All right. With that said, I'm gonna shut down the event. Thanks again, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thanks all.